No talk
I
and
am
be
this
no.
one too now in another way.
How are you sure, sir?
Keep quiet. I am in this
The
one
only,
in
that
another way.
statement,
I am
the only area where Buhari defeats for that statement, now only appointment. When you're talking about project, the project spell at God. If you say you need to spell at God, what does it mean? But if you say appointment, and in the type of appointment, you appoint people you trust. But if you like say the man, I'm ready to say that when our leaders are the government, you know I'm telling you, when they get the position, then why una no come win APC? Why una no win?
Stay with us this morning on Global Morning. Thank you, everyone. I'm sure you had a great weekend. This is the start of a business weekend. We're all excited to be here. Nigeria, as always, is in front of us to build and, of course, to take responsibility for. Just to add to that, we are days away from inauguration. It's a big one for this country, not just for politicians, not just for political parties, but for the country itself, because one government is winding down, then another is just counting a couple of days to come into office. So there's just going to be a change of leadership. But then, as we know, it's governance is a continuum. And because of the week, so much had happened, even into the weekend, and we'll be having a bit of a conversation about some of these highlights as we make progress into the show this morning. I'm blessed to be joined by Kemi Shekun. She's not going to ask for trouble with me on the program this morning. At least I need to put that up front.
A very good morning to you, Uye, and it's a pleasure to be with you on the Global Morning Show again this morning. Indeed, we're going to have a change of baton, between the outgoing government and the incoming government. Fingers across, a lot of people are looking forward to it. Nigeria is going into its 24th year into uninterrupted democracy, or maybe 24th year. 24th. Yes, uninterrupted democracy. And we can only be grateful and thankful, because before now, the democracy would have been truncated. It may not be what we had hoped it will be, but at least it's not what it used to be back in the 80s, where a little bit of democracy, you're kicked out, and then you have to start all over again with the military. So some way, somehow, we're growing, and that's something to be grateful for.
Yeah, it is. I think President Muhammadu Buhari, too, alongside with cabinet members, have been taking stock of their time in office. And then, of course, the president had 2 books launched in his name.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Just in the course of the weekend. I don't want to go into the naira and kobo of that event, but
well,
it is what it is now.
The truth is, I'm beginning to think that I might have to write a book very soon, because it appears that that's the best and the easiest way, especially if you know 1 or 2 people in government and you can, write something interesting enough for them to come and launch. I was at a book launch that was not that big sometime last week, right. And the humongous figures I was hearing, I said to myself, maybe this is the next way or the best way to cash out. It's just the right idea I'm waiting for.
Will I be in a hurry if I say I already have the forward written for you?
Well, thank you for that.
All right, great. I understand, by the way, that American presidents are expected to write a book before they leave office.
Yes,
that sort of thing. And they must have a library ultimately as well.
Yes.
But I think the library part is the conversation we're not having, really.
Well, you would recall that President Olusegun Obasanjo did have something similar, with the Ogun State, with the President Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library.
Right.
So I think he tried to replicate that. But since him, there's been President Yaradua, who died interstate, right? And there has also been President Goodluck Jonathan, who probably wasn't ready, to leave government at the time he left. So we have President Muhammadu Buhari, who's actually a farmer at heart and has said it without mincing words a couple of times, to say that I want to go back to my farm, my cows, and all the other, things I have there. So maybe that's why he's not considering that,
Okay, so let's leave it at that, everyone. All right, so let's take you to the papers now. At least that should form the basis for our interaction this morning. Let's take you to the papers quickly. We're beginning with the Punch newspaper. We have about 5 of them to look at this morning. The Punch has got a big story, as is always the case. One there that says Dangote continent is a landmark, and for the Dangote Group, on one hand, it's a pivotal project, and then for Nigeria, it's a game changer, even though we know there are questions hanging over this development, as beautiful and commendable as it is. And then we have a couple of riders.
Okay, yeah, go ahead with
Yeah, a
the
couple of
riders.
riders there. It says Buhari, Tinubu, African leaders, others to attend launching refinery to meet daily fuel consumption creates 100,000 jobs. For a country that's dealing with so much of unemployment, 100,000 jobs is actually a mileage.
Absolutely, it's not a joke. And considering that they will be giving us about 600,000 barrels a day of refined crude oil, there's a lot to look forward to.
Right.
But I think that you would recall that at some point Dangote wanted to actually buy our refineries and fix it, but somehow he was frustrated from it. But one man had a dream and he has set it in motion, and today we'll be launching the Dangote refinery. Fingers are crossed for me, because I want to look at what it will portend fuel subsidy and its removal in when it eventually happens, because once the fuel subsidy is removed, then the price of fuel will rise. But with this Dangote refinery actively working, giving us 600,000 barrels a day, one would expect that there will be some mitigation in the middle, for the common man. That's
Right.
number one. Number two, there's also the aspect of the fact that the refinery in itself, right, will be receiving our crude oil in Naira. One of the questions I have always asked, even while I was in secondary school, was why we had to sell crude oil in dollars, because that way we were strengthening the dollars, right? And in strengthening the dollar, the Naira continued to fall.
Weaken.
Exactly. So knowing now that he will be buying our crude oil in Naira, and he will be giving it back to us in Naira, I think it gives one hope as to things to look forward to with regards to what is to come from the Dangote refinery.
And to even think that the government has a substantial stake in it.
Absolutely.
It's again another
Absolutely.
blessing for our economy.
Absolutely.
All right, then we have a couple of other stories on the front page of today's Punch newspaper. Account for $460 million CCTV loan, court orders federal government. And then we have other stories there. And the LEA arrests Baron in Lagos hotel over 567 million naira seized drug. There's almost any other day you flip through the papers and you don't find a story of some bursting being done by the NDLEA.
Well,
these days.
one must continue to commend the current
leadership.
The current leadership of the NDLEA, especially the chairman,
Right.
Brigadier General Buba Marwa, retired, because he has shown what leadership can do. I recall in the last interview that I did have with the spokesperson of the NDLEA, one of the things he said was the fact that when the chairman, took over the reins of the NDLEA, one of the first things he did was to boost the morale of the officials, promoted more than 70% of the citizens to be able to do their work, with not scored. And that tells you something
Right.
perhaps the incoming government will have to do. I think the seizure that was made of crystal meth, being able to get the laws to be set in place in such a way that when you're caught, even the assets that you have or had will be taken away from you. That was not what it used to be in the recent past.
That is systemic approach to it as well. So it's not fire brigade, it's not random, all right? It's systemic, and you see the investment being made in that direction.
It's also, that has come into the NDLEA, and I think that the fact that the officers are seeing how respected they are in the society today,
Right.
how people adore them, appreciate them for what they're doing, I think it also gives them more gusto to do a lot for society.
Definitely. Don't judge me based on performance as minute on Saturday. Of course, some persons would say, quote unquote, is the anointed or the chosen one. But then the battle, as they call it, is not over yet. But everybody's trying to.
EDC minister, right? I think he tried to sort out a few of the dirt. He tried along the line.
But he said that place was a difficult place, so nobody should.
Noche is actually at loggerheads with the chairman right now.
Right.
Saying that the chairman is or actually signing off checks, right, without recourse to the board and a host of others. So you can tell that to clean up the NDDC would require more than just a man. It might actually require more than just one person who has, great ideas of how to do it. But if he says, don't judge me by what I did as Minister of NDDC, and you also say that he's the anointed candidate, he's lucky, because in the Senate, for example, there's a bit of decorum.
I didn't say the anointed candidate. That's how politicians within their circles refer to him. And
Okay,
he's
well,
the anointed one. He's the chosen one.
well, the thing about it is that the good thing about it is that the Senate has been a bit tempered. It's unlike what is happening in the House of Representatives, where you
it's
have
crazy at that level.
Yes, where you have 360 members as against 109 senators, and somehow they've been able to manage theirs. Of course, they knew the Senate presidency was coming to the South.
Right.
You understand? Whether it was Southeast or South-South was what the debate was, and eventually went to the South-South. And you recall that the South-South has really never produced a Senate president. The Southeast has done that quite a number of times.
Sure.
Chuba
Back to back.
Kadigbo. Chuba Kadigbo, Evans Ewerem.
Then you
know,
have,
there was even the Deputy Senate President,
right.
Ekweremadu, Madu, you know, and all of that. So,
Pius Ayim.
yeah. So it's a good thing now that we have it coming to the South-South. Let's see how but the House of Representatives, I think, is where the real battleground is. And we're hopeful that somehow they will sort themselves out, because one of the worst things that could happen to this government is to have a fight between the legislature and the executive.
We can't afford to have that, because we know what happens when two elephants fight. Right?
Absolutely.
So let's turn to this Nigeria quickly, everyone. Let's see what headlines we have on the front page of this Nigeria this morning. The first one here, this Nigeria, it says 10th NAS. Northwest may lose one presiding officer's slot for balancing. A writer there says North Central favored based on last election performance. Okay, over 70% of Nigeria's food exports rejected abroad. That's NAFDAC. And so NAFDAC is working very frantically now to ensure that they find collaboration with agencies such as the Nigerian Customs Service, the DSS, and a host of others, just to ensure that they boost our image and then also enhance the products themselves in terms of standardization, regulation, and so on and so forth, so we don't begin to get embarrassed, because most times we look at it from the Naira and Kobo perspective, but again, there's the embarrassment that comes with products being rejected.
Well, the thing is, I did have a conversation with someone in the Export Promotion Council yesterday, and I think the crux of our discussion at that yesterday was I was asking what happened to our yam.
Right.
So what happened at that time was it wasn't lifted on time, the bottlenecks at the customs and all of that. By the time it got there, it had gone bad, and the shelf life had gone. So it's a good thing now. Sorry, excuse me.
Sorry.
It's a good thing now that NAFDAC is stepping in, and NAFDAC is saying, let us have a collaboration. When goods come, let us see how the customs can move it out in time. Because at the end of the day, if we're going to get this foreign currency and buoy up the Naira, right, we need to be able to move things out of Nigeria as fast as possible. And I'm glad that NAFDAC is taking the lead in that and trying to have a conversation with regards to that. And hopefully, you know, they would also have conversations with some of these countries where you have a lot of Nigerians, Canada, America,
across Europe.
the UK, you know, and across Europe and all of that, so that when our goods come there, they don't say, oh, this is Nigeria. But Nigerian must also understand that you are a representative of Nigeria. Every negative thing you say about Nigeria at the end of the day bounces back on you, because if people do not want made in Nigeria simply because you have castigated Nigeria, you have torn Nigeria down at some fora or the other, you know, it will eventually bounce on the Naira, and when it bounces on the Naira, we'll keep exchanging at a very ugly rate.
Okay, as we stay with this Nigeria this morning, Serap is back in the news, by the way. Says court directs Buhari to account for $460 million Abuja CCTV Chinese law. Brought you that story from the Punch earlier, just a while ago. Okay, so we go ahead now to look at other stories here. ECOWAS, MPs lament speaker's poor leadership style. All right, audit report, Senate orders Works Ministry to refund 692 million naira to FG's account. And then bandits kill 9, injure others in Kaduna as herders murder vigilante, wound another in Delta community. We thought this was going to be a thing of the past real soon, but then it appears we are now out of the woods with regards to fighting insurgency and banditry.
Well, the challenge that we're having with the insecurity we're having in Nigeria is that it's beginning to take different formats that the military or the security apparatus of the country is not ready for. Right. So what you're having is these bandits who used to be put together in one place have decided to start going into different places and all of that. And so it's going to take a different approach. It's going to take a guerrilla approach, you know, to be able to tackle this thing, because they're not presenting in the same way they were presenting in the past.
So tactics have changed.
Yes, their tactics have changed, and so our tactics must also change. However, I need us to take a look at that 460 million Abuja CCTV project. Well, 460 million.
Sadly, we can't write you a check from it, can we?
Oh, sadly, but I'm not even interested. If I have the CCTV, then I will have no problem with it, you know. But $460 million back in the days when the Naira was exchanging at a better rate, right?
Less than 200, basically.
Yes, at a better rate, and you have $460 million, and I'm not sure you have seen those CCTVs, but I have seen one or two that look dead on arrival. And it's a loan that was taken from China, and it's a loan that we're servicing. As a matter of fact, the finance minister has also said that she does not have the details of what went down in that loan. She only knows that we are servicing the loan.
Whether we got value from it or not is a different kettle of fish.
Whether we got value for it or not is obvious, because I do not see the CCTVs in Abuja.
Okay.
But we are servicing the loan, almost $500 million, and that is worrisome, and that is scary, and that must stop. So for the first time in a very long time, I will salute Serap for doing this. I will say that, well, they should continue to be the watchdog, and they should, you know, keep squeezing until we find out where that money went to.
Exactly, and you're wondering how many other loans we could have also secured, and which probably had also gone into ventures for which you can account, for which we have no value today. And that's a very sad and painful.
And scary, you're right.
Because ultimately Nigerians will have to pay this money, even though Kemi is going to argue that people will not come to your house to collect money from you.
But you see, another part of this story that we must bring to the public is the fact that this loan was taken in the era before the Buhari government, right? Although governance is a continuum, you know, for us to get this money back, we have to bring those people back to the table and bring this government too back to the table, hold both their hands and say, please, where is our $460 million since we can't find the CCTVs?
Okay, so let's see how this court order turns out with regards to how we find answers to the questions regarding the $460 million loan. All right, Daura plans big for Buhari's homecoming. I'm sure naturally that should be expected. Okay, Nigeria imported 1.5 trillion naira raw sugar in 6 years. That's a whole lot in terms of volume of sugar and then the amount involved in it. MSSN petitions FG over lewd sexual contents in school textbooks, and then you're wondering how exactly did we get to that point where we have lewd and sexual content in school textbooks.
How did that scale through?
Yes, it has, because the damage has been done now. Obviously, that's the reason it made it to the front page of the paper this morning.
Absolutely, but then I think that beyond the petition in the federal government, we also need to look at the Ministry of Education, look at those in charge of approving these books.
The due diligence process.
Exactly. One of the things we must never do is use a wishy-washy approach to what the children have to consume. Right. You know, so whoever has to be behind, you know, passing the books that have to go into the classrooms has to be someone top-notch. And since some of these books have gone, I think heads must roll. I'm one of those who believes that punishment must act as a deterrent, right? Yeah. So that people don't make such mistakes again. Because what you feed the mind of a child stays with that child for a very long time to come, if not forever.
Okay, so big one on the front page of Daily Trust this morning says 6 top sectors are waiting Tinubu's magic wand. Is there such thing as magic wand? But then the paper is referring to 6 very crucial sectors that await so much of work by the incoming administration. That's on the Daily Trust this morning. Okay, then we have riders on that headline. Says experts advocate new security architecture think tank. Power grid crashes dog energy sector. All right, 77 trillion naira debt amid rising inflation. So again, the challenge of taming inflation is in front of the incoming government as well. Bandits kill 15 farmers in Kaduna, Benue. Quite a sad story that Kemi and I just chit-chatted about a while ago. Okay, still on the front page of Daily Trust this morning, says how vigilantes killed 11 herders, women, children in Oyo. Resident doctors suspend strike, resume work today. Should we heave a sigh of relief?
Well, I think we should heave a sigh of relief, and we should also applaud the government in a way. I am not one of those who believe that strikes must be a way to resolve the challenges that you have, because when you go on strike, what you're doing is you're causing the patient's pain. In this case, you know, you're causing the patient's pain. It's not the federal government that will feel the pain. And I liked the move that the federal government made, and they said, oh, we're looking for ad hoc staff, you know, to come and fill in the gap. And I think that has helped the doctors see that don't hold people to ransom, don't blackmail people. Let's get to the drawing table. Let's have a discussion. Let's judge and find the solution to this issue. But if every time there is a challenge, you feel that the best way to go about it is a strike, you know, there will always be problems because patients will die. And lives cannot be gotten back.
Yeah, quite a brilliant point. But then they say there's no smoke without fire. Most times these professionals would have exhausted all of those options. I mean, in most cases, and then strike becomes the last resort.
Well, I don't know what to say about that, but I know that in the case of ASU and this other new
the one some persons will call the parallel.
Would you call it parallel? Yes, there's this other union. I've interviewed the head of the union before, but hey, the difference between ASU and as soon as the federal government, right? Yeah. Gave them some rights to stand alone as a union, and it's called something, okay? And ASU started to, you know, shift ground. Meanwhile, before then, they were insistent that, no, we were going to go on strike, forgetting that you were holding the lives of students back. And you were, this time that they have, they will never get back, right? But since that approval, you will notice that there's been a bit of calm in the education sector, and there also has been some form of understanding that our dedication is first to the student, right? And that's, for me, I feel that, especially even for doctors who signed the Hippocratic Oath, the federal government, if you look at what doctors earn in comparison with what other people earn, you will see that they are a lot more, they're a lot better than the rest of the earning public, right?
In terms of remuneration, yeah.
In terms of remuneration, sometimes what they want to say is, oh, my colleagues in the my colleagues abroad,
in UAE,
you know,
in England,
earn a lot more than I do, but they forget that their colleagues abroad have to repay loans, you know, and
over several years.
Over several years.
Post college.
Post college, right? So, but here you finish, you're done, and you're good to go, and that's the reason why some of the unpatriotic ones bail immediately, right? So, if you're getting remunerated not as much as your colleagues abroad, but you're getting a better remuneration than the average person here, right? That says that how then do you give back to your society? How then do you give back to your country? If what you want to do is keep going on strike, when you can actually take out some time to say, okay, we have our differences, but because the country has given me some education that I could have had to pay till I was 70 for, then I will, you know, create some leeway, right, for the country. So I think that it's a good thing they've called off the strike. I think that moving forward, they should try to do more of joy-joying, remembering that they have also gained something from the nation itself. Right.
In a nutshell, let's be patriotic, even at that professional level. Okay, so we turn to the Abuja Inquirer now. The Abuja Inquirer has quite a number of headlines as well. This morning, a very big one in front of it, Abuja Inquirer says, countdown to inauguration in Abuja, massive security deployments. Hotels fully booked, artisans count gains, Anglican Church set agenda for Tinubu. Okay, so it's a big one for Nigeria, like we said at the top of this program this morning. Okay, that's May 29th for us. By the way, has a picture of the Vice President with quite a number of school children flanking him there. Just above the nameplates of the Abuja Inquirer this morning, the headline here says at least 37 policemen killed in 3 months. Okay, while we're having a very intense conversation, frank conversation about police brutality, we should also spare some energy to talk about the welfare of the policeman on the streets, going to work every day, putting his life on on the line, in harm's way, to work for the nation, to protect the rest of us, all right? We must continue to talk about how they too are protected, because they need to have a form of protection, a level of safety to also be able to extend that protection to members of the public.
The truth is we need to have a total overhaul of how we look at policemen. There are bad eggs amongst them. There is no doubt about that.
Right.
But there has to be a way we look at them as people who are willing to lay down their lives so that the rest of us can sleep at night. You know, unless we start to look at them like that, we will continue to see them as we'll continue to see them as they and we. But it's we together for the peace and the security of our nation. But most importantly, it is these people sacrificing their time, their energy, their lives sometimes so that the rest of us can be safe. And I think that if we look at them that way, there will be a better approach to how we deal with them. You know, sometimes you're going in the middle of the night and you see this police officer. You can tell he's tired, but he's there ensuring that people are not moving illegal things, you know, that people are safe and all of that. And when you see him, I think that the least we can do is not to see them, unless one is a criminal. Right? The least we can do is accord them the respect that they deserve for keeping the rest of us safe, you know. And perhaps this is the time to go back to the Seun Kuti story to say that never, ever in our society should the police uniform be as disrespected as it was by Seun Kuti. But I'm glad he seems to have learned his lesson. Seems to be coming out very well. Yeah. You know.
Okay, so we'll look at a few more headlines. Kidnappers kill ex-head teacher in Abuja. That's quite a sad story, apparently. Uni Abuja promotes 19 academics to professorial level. Abuja will not be safe unless... All right, that's the story on page 6 of the Abuja Inquirer, I should say. So please look it up and find details. NAS renovation... complex will not be ready before inauguration, FCDA. This conversation has been a long time coming about the renovation of the National Assembly complex. At the start of it, it was concerns by most Nigerians about the billions of naira being earmarked for the renovation of the complex. But now we're looking at a timeline for the project, for the renovation itself. And the FCDA authorities are now telling us that the renovation cycle will not be completed before inauguration.
Well, at least we're moving away from a country that usually would allow things become decrepit and dilapidated before they decide to renovate. So I think we should just be a bit patient with them. I think we should just be, you know, hopeful and grateful that at least everything hasn't gone haywire before they decided that they were going to do something about it.
I know you're not a fan of the Japa syndrome, but here there's a story that says Nigerians kick over UK students' family travel ban. Of course, that story popped yesterday, actually. I mean, do you find this soothing, or you think it's something that is concerning?
Well, I don't find it soothing, because if someone is going to take as many hundreds or, well, tens of thousands or at least thousands of pounds, you know, to go to the UK, many of us know that they're not going there just for the degrees that will come from it. They're actually going there because they want to be able to get a second passport, you know. So I think, yes, the UK, you know, citizens feel that their population is burgeoning, but they also need to consider how much is coming into their economy based on this. But like you said, I am not a fan of the Japa syndrome. And so one of the things I will say once again is, more than anything else, it is important that we fix Nigeria. Because regardless of where we go, as they say when we're much younger, east or west, home is best.
Right.
If we fix Nigeria, if each and every one of us pays attention, if we ensure that what the monies that we are getting allocated for is put into what they should be used for, we may not need to japa. We may not need to japa if power is constant, if, you know, the things you are asking for, the roads are good, power is constant, you know, when someone, when you buy something and you haven't been well taken care of as a consumer, you can attend to that. You know, when all of these things are put in place, when the trains are working, you want to move from here to Nasarawa, you take a train, you bag, and you know that the train moves at this time, it comes back at this time, you know, and all of that. You might not want to even japa. Because the truth about it is that I personally consider the weather very harsh, you know. So I think that more than anything else, it will be, yes, it's good to travel, but not travel to stay, travel to come back with the new eyes you have gotten from the city you have been.
Because again, east or west, home is best.
Okay,
don't judge me based on performance as minister. We brought it that
that's
earlier.
Akpabio again,
Yeah,
isn't
of course it is. Failed Abuja CCTV projects. Court orders Buhari government to account for $460 million Chinese loan. Jeff and O'Brien International to host training for leading managers, executives. Okay, sometime this year. Says Matawale's $2 million bribe allegation. We will not bandy words with suspects. EFCC. That has been a back and forth between the incumbent governors of our states and the leadership of the EFCC. What have been your thoughts?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think that many of the outgoing governors are very afraid. They're very afraid of the EFCC chairman. Of course, once they are outgone, the immunity is removed and they can be done with as pleased by the EFCC.
That's right.
So there is that snag.
Okay.
You understand. However, the governor has claimed that there was a bribe, and the EFCC chairman has said, if there is truly a bribe, then please
present your evidence.
You know. And he also said something. I'm not 100. Sorry. Sorry. Can we quickly take a break, please?
All right, we're taking a quick break now, everyone. We're back shortly with the rest of the program.
Now, see, let me tell you.
I am for everybody, I am for nobody.
No, you not talking about me.
In another way.
How are you sure, sir?
I am in another way. I am
the only area where Buhari defeats for that statement. Now only appointment. When you are talking about project, the project is spelled as God. If you need to spell as God, what does it mean? But if you say appointment, and in the type of appointment, you appoint people in front. But if you like the man, I'm a whether our leaders are the I'm telling you, where to get the position then. Why you no come win APC? Why you no win Now, see, let me tell you.
I am for everybody, I am for nobody.
No, you not talking about me.
In another way.
How are you sure, sir?
I am in another way. I am
the only area where Buhari defeats for that statement. Now only appointment. When you are talking about project, the project is spelled as God. You need to spell as God. What does it mean? But if you say appointment, and in the type of appointment, you appoint people in front.
On Global TV, we are on Star Times channel 276, and remember that we are active across social media platforms. The handle is at Global TV NG. So Kemi and I were having a conversation about the EFCC outgoing governors, or some of the outgoing governors who are likely, well, obviously under the radar of the EFCC.
Yeah. Well, the truth about it is, it's like a cat and mouse game. Right? It's like a cat and mouse game. So there has been an accusation. And the chairman has said, yes, it is true. I am not pristine. And as it is with every human being, okay? I am not pristine. But if you have anything against me, kindly bring evidence. More importantly, I think that the governors, some of these outgoing governors are really wary of him, because he seems to have been able, of course, like he said, he's not pristine, but he seems to have been able to put a healthy fear, which we actually need for people in government, really. Sure. He seems to have been able to put a healthy fear in many of these governors, you know, and for me, I want to believe that this is a good thing. It will be a shame if any evidence is brought forward, you know, that might implicate him in any way.
As the chairman of the EFCC?
Yes, yes, because that will mean that it's almost impossible to find someone that can actually stand the test of time in the EFCC. You would recall the case of Magu of the EFCC, even though that case never came into public. We only know that he was removed rather unceremoniously.
And became extremely scandalous for him and then for the commission itself.
Absolutely. So the last person that we heard, was able to withstand the pressure of some of what was coming, was the pioneer chairman of the EFCC itself, Nuhu Ribadu, who was given $15 million in cash and turned it down. Now, if somebody gave you $15 million in cash, let's go to the next story.
Okay, I was going to say I will activate my conscience and be patriotic, but then we have to look at...
Let's just go to the next story. I'm not going to put you on the spot.
Our last paper this morning, everyone. Okay, News Direct, a big headline there. Buhari 5 African presidents to commission Dangote Petroleum Refinery. And we told you earlier that that event is for today. And just a while ago, Kemi did a very brilliant work by helping us to highlight the benefits that come with these very laudable projects. Is the largest in Africa, we understand, and then we've also seen basically how much of advantage it will bring to us in terms of job creation, that is employment opportunities, and then how it will help mitigate the impact that the proposed removal of fuel subsidy will bring. And
one is hoping that the government will not rest on its oars, saying now we have a Dangote refinery, so we can go to rest, we can go to sleep, because Dangote is refining 600,000 barrels of fuel per day. I think that this is the time for the government to take the the many wins that will come from having our fuel refined in Nigeria and start to work on our other refineries, or work on new refineries, or work on giving licenses to more modular refineries. Right. One of the greatest challenges our fuel has had in recent times is the fact that our fuel gets taken to neighboring African countries. So it's subsidized here, but it's sold very expensively in neighboring African countries. And what does that say? That says that there is a market for fuel, for fuel in Nigeria. So even if Dangote refines 600,000 barrels a day, there is a need to create more refineries so that we can supply across board to other African countries, right? That way they don't need to steal, we don't need to subsidize at a price that they cannot, at a price that is injurious to us. Right. So we're paying trillions in subsidy and they're taking it. No, we just send it to them at the right price and then they can buy. And so the government should not rest on its oars. The government should also start looking at creating more refineries. I asked the question once, I don't know if you've ever wondered, why is it impossible to have a refinery per state or something? I don't know.
These things are possible, but a lot of analysts will talk about willpower, they will talk about visionary leadership and so on and so forth. And then again, you're asking yourself, this is our 24th year practicing democracy since 1999. I mean, by the 30th of May, we've started our 25th year into democracy uninterrupted, all right?
Absolutely.
And you're asking, is it not possible to even revamp the existing four? We have two in Port Harcourt, I understand. We have one in Warri, we have one in Kaduna. And what we keep hearing is working at 35%
you see,
capacity.
they have been on this for quite a while.
Right.
They have been on this for quite a while. At some point, even Dangote was interested in buying them,
but
the government was not interested in selling to him at that time. Maybe if he works this out very well, maybe they could still sell to him, but that will create a very bad monopoly, and that can be dangerous. It can be dangerous. So, but let's hope that the willpower will be there to fix these refineries. If we have the Port Harcourt refinery, for example, working, at a optimal capacity, right? It means that the South is covered. If we have the Kaduna refinery working at optimal capacity, it means that the North at least is covered. And then with Lagos, right, and being at the shore or the seashore, it means that at least Lagos and the Southwest and Co is covered. But willpower, as you said, I don't know. Some people say that prayers, we overrate prayers in Nigeria, but I pray that we're able to actually get this willpower in place and get this thing going.
All right, great. I think that was a very fine place to leave it this morning. But again, We have a nation to build in front of us, and the 29th of May is a big day. We can say is our party day because it not only changes government, it also brings hope. It also gives us a reason to aspire to a better Nigeria, a bigger Nigeria, a Nigeria that works for everyone, whether it's in health, in education, in social services, infrastructure development.
Transportation.
Yeah, transportation as well, all right? Infrastructure overall, basic
Excuse
amenities.
me, tourism and all of that.
Exactly. So, I mean, the list is endless. But then again, they say it's one step at a time, isn't it?
Absolutely. One step at a time. If we're willing to put in the work, then the Nigeria of our dreams is possible. If we're unwilling to put in the work, then we'll continue to crawl. My name is Kemi Ashekun. Thank you for watching. I'm
Uyag Mofwegbe. Thank you for joining us here this morning. We have media news coming, this time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I'm